Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the EmpowerMAN podcast. We are 2 weeks out from my favorite holiday, Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. I am so fired up. Who's been naughty? Who's been nice? I've been naughty for a lot of years, so hopefully I get something nice for Christmas this year. But I digress. Tonight, I am joined by the man who, if he was an NFL quarterback, his nickname would be Greggy Munagut. His back is so wide that he could cover the southern border. The man whose only COVID booster has a testosterone label on it. He is our friend. He is the champion of the Second Amendment. The guy is packed, strapped, and ready to rock and roll. He's my boy. He's your boy. He is everyone's boy. He's a gift to the world. He's our patriot parent. And my man, he is the coach, Greg A. Tedora the first. Sir, how we doing?
Good evening, Mike. And as always, thank you for that awesome intro. Appreciate that. And the only COVID booster that works is Sipinate.
Yeah, well, it's funny. During COVID, the only shots I took were Jameson.
I mean, listen, if it works, it works.
Yeah, well,
you know I love Jameson, so
yes.
It's all good.
Yes, the pandemic always brought out the best in people, especially
of course.
me. So,
Of course.
But there's positives and negatives to everything, Greggy T.
Correct.
Greggy T, you're rocking some really sick apparel there, sir. What's that shirt say, and where can our audience find that?
Good old GBRS Group. You know, pretty much my favorite company for anything defense related and tactics and CQB training and also workout training. They have videos with that, but yeah, good luck getting. I think they restock these shirts, but you should join their Patreon because you get early access. Because once they sell out, they pretty much are gone. So, and this is the old Ert hat. So, gotta love those guys. And I see you're rocking the New York Jets.
I am, because they won 30-6.
Did they?
He's Zach Wilson.
Who'd they play?
He drops bombs and nails moms.
Who'd they play?
They played the Texans. They played Houston.
Okay. It's great. For the audience, I don't watch football, so it's all good.
Well, you don't know what's on the back of my shirt, and that is my Christmas gift is coming on Christmas Eve when Aaron effing Rodgers makes his triumphant return from a torn Achilles, the man that defies science. And Aaron, if you ever come across this podcast, I would love to have you on. It would be an honor to have Aaron effing Rodgers on this podcast. You talk about EmpowerMAN. That guy defies science. Dude,
listen.
I wish I would have followed him his whole career. I'm sorry for listening, Aaron. I did not like you when you were in Green Bay. I think you are the man. This guy he's the best. He's just the best.
Listen, I just hope that he's not a dumb guy by any means. I just hope he's not coming back too soon. Just saying, I gotta say it. I've had injuries, and is it worth it? Because it's not like they're a contender. Maybe he could wait till next season. I don't know. That's just my opinion. But you know what? God bless. It's his choice. So good for him. I hope he stays safe.
Yeah, dude, Aaron effing Rodgers.
Because those boys will be coming for you.
Dude,
just saying, that's gonna happen.
This guy is, dude. I listened to him on the Pat McAfee show. Dude, he's just the best. He's just, I love him. I can't get enough. I wish he was played his whole career in New York. I think he's the best. He's great.
Listen, I know in those huddles, they're gonna be saying, "Go for him."
Oh yeah,
sweep the knee.
100%, 100%, 100%.
Yes, sir.
But as customary, especially during, as we are in the holiday season here, want to give a shout out to our policemen and women, our firemen and women, our EMTs, our first responders. Thank you for your sacrifices and for keeping our community safe and sound.
Absolutely. And thank you to all the military personnel out there, both here and overseas. Please be careful. Watch your back. A lot of shit going on out there. A lot of misinformation here. Regardless of any of that, just be careful. And thank you to your families.
Yes, thank you. I couldn't have said any better, Greg. That was awesome. We'll dive into tonight's topic. It's something that we come across a lot through our conversation with our friends. We've got some great feedback from people on our shows. Um, there's two sides to every story, and we often see only one side of the story.
Technically,
Whether
there's 3 sides, but
there
there's
is
2.
there is three sides. I agree,
Yes.
but to keep it simple,
Yeah.
we'll just
Basic
make
math.
it basic stuff
Yeah.
because I've had 5 concussions. I don't need to be figuring stuff out. I probably had more,
Still
but who
smarter
knows?
than me.
Well, I did read my Webster's thesaurus before I came on, so
Oh, hey, better man than
be
me.
be careful for some big vocabulary coming at you.
Yeah, last week you were crushing it with the words, man.
It
Woo.
gets it gets even better, and I'm drinking water,
Woohoo.
only
I'm
water.
drinking pre-workout at 8:30 at night. It's awesome.
Attaboy, attaboy.
Yeah, my doctor's gonna be real happy with that.
What do they
Yeah,
know?
whatever. I have to be up in 3 hours to go to Florida. It's all good.
Perfect. That's right.
Yeah.
It's going to be a fun one.
Yeah.
But Greggy T, we see that in the news a lot. There's two
Mhm.
sides to every story, but sometimes we only see one, depending on what news
Yeah.
outlet you watch.
Yeah.
So it really
Yeah.
kind of permeates through society, only seeing one side of the story because we're so quick to kind of take sides for
Yeah.
people when we don't
Yeah.
know what goes on behind closed doors. So, Greggy T, we'll dive right into it. Do you feel like when you first meet someone that they embellish like kind of the way they were treated? Now we're looking at a dating sense here. Like pre-marriage, do you ever feel like you meet somebody? Because we've had girlfriends, friends of ours that would meet guys and they would tell stories about the way they were treated. But there's two
Mhm.
sides to every story. We don't know the girl side. In contrast, when we meet a girl, they'll often say the way they were treated, but we don't know his side of the story. So, do you think that people tend to embellish how they were treated when they first meet somebody because they want to make a good impression or they want to prove like, hey, I'm an honest Joe or I'm an honest Josephine? What are your thoughts on that, Greg?
I think it's definitely yes, and I think it's both for both reasons. I think they wanna come across a certain way as best they can, but I also think that they wanna say and set the tone of the conversation to their friends that they were a certain way to kind of like check the box. So I think it's not always 100% natural. I think it has its underlying meanings. You want to put on a good first impression? Yes. But is it for the right reason or you just want to have a talking point when you're amongst your friends?
I
That's
agree.
my opinion.
And to back it up with some science here, Newton's laws say for every action there's an equal or opposite reaction.
Mhm.
So if you look at yourself, like, okay, what did I do to cause this person this response? Or
Mhm.
what did I do? Because I mean, there's nobody's perfect, and we often look at the way things are translated and communicated, and miscommunications arise all the time. It's just a matter of having the awareness to sit down and kind of hash things out. And that's what I think. But I often feel like you get one side of the story, and it's almost becomes a right versus wrong. Like now, I can see the situations are different. Like if someone's like abusive, and you're getting
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that's different. I
Mhm.
mean, but for the most part, I think I would tend to agree that sometimes people I feel will not exaggerate because let's face it, some guys and girls will also embellish their partners, how many
Mhm.
partners they've been with and whatnot. So I think it's kind of it becomes kind of a you ready for this, Greg? Becomes kind of a quagmire because you're trying to navigate through and sift through, the authenticity of people. Because I feel like people today are not authentic. I feel like there's a lack of authenticity in the world. How do you feel about that, Greg?
100%. There is a major lack of it, and it's only getting worse in my opinion. And because I think people want that instant satisfaction, they don't want to put work in or time in. And I think it's also social media's fault for that. It's another one of the negatives for it. So yes, I totally agree with that.
Why do you think authenticity is lacking? Do you think it's just the way our society has been cultivated over the last 4 years? Let's just say since COVID. Did you see this before COVID? I mean, why do you think authenticity is so scarce these days?
I think it was happening before COVID. I think COVID might have sped it up a little because people were, quarantined and locked in their apartments and houses. But I think it was happening well before then. It just, put the spotlight on it. during that.
Yeah, yeah. It's just kind of weird. You think we often talk about we were born in the wrong era.
All the
If
time. Ask my
I
mom. I say it almost every day.
I look at the '80s, right, and I look at and I don't know if we were born in a different era, had our relationships would have lasted. But if I look at like the '80s and you saw all the classic love stories, when you talk about like
Hmm.
even like you look at like Fast Times at Ridgemont High. All right, yeah, it's a goofy movie, but there was a love angle to it, or
Hmm.
um, Top Gun, or 16 Candles, or uh, geez, Breakfast Club, like these like iconic movies. It was like the era of excess, but it was also like the era of like you believed in love, like you believed that like love existed. Now, when you look at people or you spend time with people, and like the first time there's like a, a problem, it's like they look for the nearest exit. Where you would see back in the day, both guys and girls would stand by people or be more accepting of people's
Yeah.
flaws.
Hmm.
Why do you think people are less acceptant of people and their errors and their humanity and just being human?
I think this is pretty deep question, but so during COVID, a lot of friends became not friends, family became not family because the whole vax, unvax, whatever you want to label that. So I think I'm going to get a lot of heat for this. I think most people are just sheep and they follow the herd and they don't want to rock the boat and they're afraid if their thoughts buck the system or go against the mass, even though the mass might be wrong, they don't want to do that because they're too afraid of what it feels like to be left out there or to be in that space like, oh, I'm going to catch heat for this, or oh, I can't go against that even though I know maybe deep down they know they're right. They still won't take a stand because they're weak and they're afraid of the masses. Even though the masses could be 100% wrong, they still rather follow those people. And shame on the our parents' generation for the ones that distanced themselves or had different views and they stopped talking to people. Shame on them because they knew better and they grew up in a time where, the 60s and the 70s and all the stuff that went on there, like that was cool. You guys had no problem with that. It's just a different time period and a different narrative. But now all of a sudden you're afraid to go against, what's being said, and lifelong friendships or whatever are now done.
Crazy,
And
right?
that's a fucking embarrassment in my opinion. You should be embarrassed of yourselves, you should be ashamed. I'll say it because I think it just shows how weak you are, especially when most of them don't even know what they're talking about. They don't know the facts. Most of them aren't even educated. So whatever.
Crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy,
It's
and
crazy.
that generation should know better. I'll give the younger generation a little bit of slack there. I still think it's wrong, but they get a
Right.
little bit of a break. But our parents' generation and after that, no way. No way.
Yeah.
I
It's
would
crazy.
never have thought that I would see that. You're talking friendships 40, 50, 60 plus years over a fucking vaccine, and they just shun a group of their friends or a friend. Shame on you. I would lose money on that bet. I would never have seen that coming. And I have zero respect for that.
It's crazy. It's crazy. I mean, times have definitely changed, and I've had this conversation with a few of
Mhm.
friends of mine that are female, and they would share with me some of their experiences. And it's crazy to think. When I think about one of my friends who I reconnected with, I met her 17 years ago at the Red Rock in New York City,
God
and
bless that place.
and
God
I
bless the Red Rock.
she had just lost her mom, so I hit her up on Facebook and just to pay my condolences, and then we ended up having a conversation, and it was just so nice to hear a friendly voice because we had so much fun back in the day. And you think about those times, and something will trigger something inside of you where you go back to the days of like, when you're in Manhattan or wherever you are in your mid 20s and you're running around and everybody was just We were all in on it. We were all there to have fun.
Yo,
We were
everyone was
all
cool. Everyone was cool. There was no problems.
and I love talking to people from my past because it's I hold on to that.
Of course.
As I hold on to that. And that's why
Yeah.
our friendships and our circle, like we hold on to those times because
Mm-hmm.
we're everything. There's so many challenges and so many different pressures. I feel like everybody will embellish or um, kind of, you know, make their story more pronounced to get your approval, but
Absolutely.
we don't know the girl side of the story. We don't know the guy side of the story.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, we've had girlfriends come to us, "Oh, he this, well, what's his side of the story? Let's hear his side or
Yeah.
let's hear
And
her
that
side of
doesn't
the
mean I don't
story."
have your back. I just like to know the facts first.
If we're trying to be a friend to somebody and we're trying
Yeah.
to be
Give
honest and
me
down the
all the
line,
info. Yeah.
and
Yep.
if you can't handle honest feedback, then that's something that's on you. It's not on me. I'm being a friend to you and pointing stuff out that you should fix or think about or work on or go back to your partner with to try to like grow and work through it because you can't really grow unless you receive feedback.
Just trying to help.
You're just trying to help. And Greggy T, here's another one for you that I found interesting. You feel
Great.
like when you meet people, sometimes they feel like they have to like perform.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I don't know if you're guilty of this. I think you are. I think I am. Or at least we were. We were. Definitely. Because I think not to, I don't want to sound conceited. I'm not trying to come across like that or you, but back in the day, the people that knew us for reasons. Those reasons were fun and mostly good. So I think when people were going to meet us out or wanted to go out with us, there was that almost like pre-planned expectation of I'm going to have a fantastic time tonight and I don't know where it's going to end up, but it's definitely going to be fun because I'm with these two or I'm with Mike or whatever. So I think that naturally comes, especially when you're not as mature as we are now, it almost like lives in your own head that you have to live up to that expectation. And
I
it's
agree.
almost like you're feeding your own, this is going to sound bad, but like you're feeding your own legend, even though I'm not saying we're legends, but you're feeding that story that people hear about, like that telephone game. Like you, by the time it gets to the fifth person, it's totally out of whack. But if it's a good out of whack, you want to keep that going, especially when you're young. You want that reputation and you want that stigma attached to you. And I think you start like hyping it up in your own head. And it's a lot of fun, but it's also dangerous if you don't keep it under control because you can really do some damage or step over the line and problems happen.
Well, to all my wrestling buddies out there, we know the ways of communication: telephone, tell a friend, tell a wrestler.
Yeah.
That you'd be surprised. That spreads faster than Twitter.
Listen, the whole wrestling community, because I was never a wrestler, I hung out with all you guys because you were my boy, but I wasn't a wrestler. And it is a definite lifestyle, pretty much all the rumors, at least the real old school stuff, not the new age people that are out there now. And I'm not hating on them, but it's all true. And it's a real brotherhood. And it's a pact and it's an unwritten respect where right or wrong, you're down with that person. Even if they're 100% wrong, okay, we're at the Red Rock and something happens or somebody pops off and a fight breaks out. Even if your boy is 1000% wrong, yo, you're in it and you have his back and you're doing what you got to do and you're laughing for a reason because it's true. So it's amazing that whole genre, if you want to call you guys, or group. It's really cool. At least, like I said, the like your generation and older. I not so much now from the stories that I hear, because I also think loyalty is a lot different now and the whole industry is different, like you tell me, but it really is something to see that. It was cool. And the flip side to that is they have your back pretty much no questions asked. Like a lot of your boys, yeah, I was friends with them. Some I was tighter with than others, but some I weren't that tight with. But yo, they'll have my back. And I respect that. And that's cool because most people wouldn't.
Yeah.
Like the typical nerd at the end of the bar is not going to have that. But like these
Yeah.
guys will fight to the death for you, even if you're not in their crew. And that's pretty cool.
Yeah. No, Greg, that's really cool that what you said is it's really cool. And I smile and laugh because, I just, I don't think first off, we'd all be in jail. There'd
Yeah.
be no
Or
telling this
worse.
podcast
Or worse.
or worse, and
Hmm.
unfortunately some of the people that we rolled with aren't here anymore, which stinks. But
Yeah.
there's always two sides to every story with that one. But I mean,
Yeah.
let's face it, most of the time we were wrong. Ah, hey, moving on there, Greg. So,
Next question, Mike.
next question. Ah, okay. Well, here's one for you that I
Yeah.
I I, I like. This will be a good one for you. So a softball for you. Do people come across as victims to you? You first
Yes.
meet somebody's you come across as a victim.
Hmm. Yeah, I would say if I had to take a percentage, yeah, I would say more than 50% will come off as victims, either in personal life or business.
Yeah,
So when you mix the two, yeah, definitely that's a high number. I think they do come across as a victim, and there's really no need for that. We've spoken about this in the past a few episodes ago. You have to be careful. I'm not saying don't tell the truth, or if you come across by telling the truth, you might be a little bit of a victim. That's fine. But when you constantly, if that's what you're putting out there, you're going to be known as a victim and you're going to be looked at a lot differently, both in your personal life and your business. And that you don't want.
yeah, N- I agree, and
Yeah.
I think I've been guilty of that.
We all
Of
have.
as in regards to just like explaining to someone that I meet about my past. So they're like, "Oh, why are you single? Or why are you this? Or why are you that?" And you explain to you what happened. But it's very easy to come across as the victim when
Yeah.
it's just the way life works. It's just the way life operates. I mean, they're
It is
called
what it
breakups for a
is.
reason. It
Yep.
is what it is.
Mhm.
This is my story. But I think it's really we have to be careful with the words that we choose when we describe our story. This
Yeah.
way, it doesn't get translated as
Mhm. Listen,
victimhood.
it's funny. A lot of those people like, oh, why aren't you married? Well, a lot of people just settle. And a lot of people, and I know of a lot, that you're the last to be picked in dodgeball, so you just get married and have kids. Like, yeah, I'd rather be not linked up with somebody than just do that because it's the last person on the field. No way, man. No way.
Yeah, and we've talked about this. I think people they get caught up in different things where now their mind is skewed and they tend to kind of move on to the next thing, or they think that something's better out there. And I always tell
The
guys,
grass is
listen,
always greener, right? It's still got to be cut, though.
still got to be cut, and it's got to be watered,
Yep.
or else it gets burnt. So,
Hmm.
um, when you first meet somebody, Greg, in your past, do you think people are honest? Like, do you think they're honest about? Like, do you
You
think
mean
most
when I
people are?
used to meet girls in the past?
Yeah. Do you think that most people are honest? Do you think that they're? Do you think they're 50%, uh, you know, ribbing or lying, or 50% telling the truth, or do you think they're? Do you think people? Do you think what do you think the percentages of people that are honest
I
in what
think
their
there's
story is?
there's always some sort, or there's some honesty to what they're telling you, but I don't think anybody's 100% honest
Yeah.
for numerous reasons. It could be like maybe you don't have a job, maybe you do have a job and you don't make a lot of money, or maybe there's so many different things why people might not be 100% honest. Or I don't know, maybe you're known for, dating somebody in the past. And so you have to kind of skirt around the truth a little bit when you meet people. I don't know. But I do think there is a small amount of honesty when you do meet somebody, but I don't think you get the full effect. And that's both guys and girls. I'm not hating on girls.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think a lot of guys will compensate with
Absolutely.
material possessions
Hmm.
to impress someone so that they can get them to buy into to their lifestyle. Some of it
Absolutely.
could be fabricated, some of it could be legit, but I think most
Hmm.
people tend to want to impress people with their material possessions.
Yeah, and on the flip side of that, a lot of girls say, "Oh, they don't have like exes or problems with their ex, or the ex isn't in the picture." When 95% of the time, they are,
Or they'll
which is
say like,
fine. Just be
yeah,
honest. Just be
yeah.
honest.
Or
It's
they'll
all
say
good.
money doesn't matter to them when
Of course. Hmm.
deep down inside, it
Yeah.
kind of plays a pivotal role in how they look at you or they perceive you.
Yep. Yep.
Um, I think one thing we got to be cautious of, Greg, is when we meet someone, and you know me, I'm probably the number one perpetrator of this and guilty as charged. Is you get caught up in I call it biased judgments, and what I mean
Hmm.
by that is like, a girl will tell you their story, and you're like, oh, that's terrible. F him. Like, how could he do it to you? I would treat you like this. And you're always like the first one to jump on the gun, like, oh, I would do things better. And then you make it about yourself and you become
Yeah.
biased in your
Yeah.
judgment
Hmm.
when that girl hasn't really presented herself. Because I think people fall into patterns,
Yep.
right? Like the way a girl will treat you, she's treated people in the past, and it kind of like it's a pattern. I mean, guys too. I think guys too are guilty of this as well. Like, well, they meet a girl and they tend to treat them. There's a certain type of girl that they go after, or a certain
I
type of,
was I was going there. Yep.
you know what I mean. So I think patterns that can be injurious to someone, that kind of skews our judgment about who they really are. So how do we safeguard ourselves from making those biased judgments?
Nothing. You just got to try to check yourself to have an open mind. There's really no secret sauce in doing that, in my opinion. I just think it's very. We all do it. We all do it, and I think we do it in business too. And no matter what industry you're in, but I think it's listen when you've been burned, whether you're a guy or a girl, that just adds more fuel to the fire. So it's even harder and harder and harder to disregard those bias.
Agreed.
Excuse me. So
I agree.
I think it's definitely it's a tough thing. If you're cognizant of it, it's good. Just try to not let it consume you. But like I said, it's hard.
It is, especially when someone is easy on the eyes. You know what I mean? We get caught up in that lust mindset, and then the lust mindset, kind of will help create the story when someone's trying to tell you something, but you conjure up an image of what we talked about this last week. You can't force a square peg in a round hole, so
Nope.
you have to really. And we're all guilty of this. I am again guilty as charged. You tend to have an image of somebody, and then when the picture gets adjusted, you see them for who they really are. And that's not a bad thing. Again, you can't put a square peg in a round hole. So, you know, I, be on your guard in regards to having bias when you're judging people and talking to people. Because again, there are two sides to every story. And Greggy T, my next question for you is work. You talked about relationships and dating. Now we're going to talk about work. The two sides of the story paradigm, right? We always
Yeah.
say, "Oh, my employer stinks," or "My employer does this," or "My employer does that." But let me ask you a question: Do you think that the employer gets a lot of blame for the way someone performs at work and the way they tend to act in their perspective of their employer at work?
Yeah, I think the employer gets a lot of heat, but it's sometimes it's justified and sometimes it's completely not. That person might be disgruntled or angry, not have their facts right, or maybe they're not good at their job. Maybe they're not a good listener, maybe they're not a good communicator. It could be both, but I do think the employer gets hated on a lot. And I just think and listen, sometimes it's correct. There are, companies out there and bosses that are just not good, and it's a fact. But I think employees should be careful, especially when they're job interviewing or meeting people at other firms in the same industry, of talking shit about their previous company. because even if in real estate, which is what I know, as big of a world as it's a small world,
Yeah, yeah.
even though one company might absolutely hate the other company, they still don't want to hear from you how much you don't like the other company because they know that if you do it to them and then you work there and go on somewhere else, they're definitely going to do that to your company.
Right.
So it's a major red flag and a turnoff. And I know a lot of people that have not hired, and I personally haven't hired a lot of people because of their shit talking about other firms. And I also I also coach new agents that are new to the business. No matter what experiences you have, I don't care how bad it is. You want to keep the leverage towards you when you're interviewing other companies, no matter what, don't talk shit. There's other ways to go around the answer. There's other ways to get that across professionally that I think you should choose as opposed to bashing the company because you're going to get that stamp put on you quick. It's hard to erase that. It's very hard.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny because we saw during the pandemic, before the pandemic, I feel when I was working for a company, it was all about accountability and positive accountability and everything else. And once the pandemic
Hmm.
came, that whole thing just flipped.
Oh yeah.
And now it's all about like, I'll say it's like coddling to the employee. You see that in
Ugh.
professional sports.
Yeah.
And look, there's nothing wrong with it, but I think of the company I used to work for, and it was built upon the hard work, the sacrifices, the tireless efforts
Yep.
of people that I looked up to and respected. And
Yeah.
I was on board. I fully bought in. I don't blame my company for anything. I mean,
Listen,
my
I
they
worked at
gave
that
me
company in a different light, in a different category, and I don't hate on them.
yeah,
I don't like certain people. But listen, it was a great company, and I bought in just like you did. Right or
spent 20
wrong, I
years
bought
there.
in. Yeah. You
Made
spent a
friendships.
lifetime there.
We met there.
Mhm.
I mean, I wish everybody could have the experience I had working in a
Absolutely.
corporate because it was charmed. It was such a blessing, and I wouldn't have what I have today and the tools to go on my own without them.
It
When I left my company, I had nothing left to give.
and it was also a special time.
True.
It could never be like, think about, let's just say you're getting into the space now.
Yeah.
Not at your age, but when you were 20 years old back then, put
Oh,
yourself 20 years old now at the same company, it's completely different. We
you
were
know,
lucky, and like Mike said, I don't regret or hate on it at all. I don't agree with like what the boss did or how he treated people. That's besides the point. But the company itself, it was special. It opened up a lot of doors. And I always say you learn just as much from bad experiences as you do good ones because
100%.
you know what you want more of
100%. And
and
one
you
person
and how to
can't ruin
treat
that.
people.
100%. 100%. I couldn't agree with you more. And one bad apple can't ruin the entire batch. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, they do come in. But
Yep.
I will say that I had a charmed corporate career when I was there. I
Mhm.
worked tirelessly because
Yeah.
that was my own thought process because I felt guilt on my end for not working instead of taking care of myself. And now that I'm working for myself, I'm the healthiest I've been since I was probably 20 years old. But I could say, well, this company burned me into the ground. No, it's because I was so passionate about being the best at my
Yeah.
company that I
Yeah.
made sacrifices that as you got older became detrimental to my longevity. And that's why, so for me to sit here and blame, oh, they worked you to the bone.
Yeah.
Listen, we,
No.
we all make choices. I chose that.
It was a choice. Yep.
And I
Yep.
loved every minute of it. I just had nothing left to give. So I
Yeah.
think the employer gets a bad rap,
Yeah,
and I
for
think
sure.
there's that lack of accountability. But like you said, though, there are some circumstances we know, people that were justified
Of
in
course.
their remedies for leaving corporate America, and
Yeah. Yeah.
but it's understanding two sides of the story.
Mhm.
It's understanding like, hey,
Yeah.
okay, so I think we need to be cognizant in our perspective, like you said, grateful for the experiences. Use that gratitude as an antidote to
Yep.
any animosity you might have towards your employer.
And use the experience as leverage, especially
Yeah,
coming. This is a big name company that we were at. It looks good on the resume.
I understand.
And also, a lot of employees will bash the company because of one person, a boss. Like I could have
Yeah,
did that. My boss was
yeah,
horrible. He was known for it. You know him. He was known for it. He would treat people like complete garbage. Why would I bash that's not the company, that's him. But a lot of people would be like, "Oh, that company sucks. Don't work there, blah blah blah." It's not the company. I had a great time. I loved working there.
yeah.
I didn't like working under him. I didn't like how he treated people, and it was horrible. That's not the company. So you got to be careful of who you really not happy with.
That's right.
So
That's right. Having that delineation is extremely
yeah,
important.
yeah.
And Greggy T, we're going to move on. We talked about relationships and meeting people. We talked about work. Two sides of the story and competition. And you're being a competitive swimmer.
Mhm.
We can, we've talked about some of the challenges you faced not working with certain coaches and how that coaching styles didn't really mesh with you.
Yeah.
How do you think the two sides of the story paradigm can affect competition? Like we tend to blame the referees, we blame the media, we
Yeah.
blame the turf. Why 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 are we so quick to side with one? All right, here's one for you, right? With the players versus the owners, right? Oh, the players should get as much money as they can. But what about the owners and the things that they do that doesn't involve money? Why are we so quick to judge one side without hearing the other side of the story, especially in competition?
I think with competition, there's a lot at stake, especially when you get to the professional level. We're talking a lot of money on the table, not just for the athletes, but for the organization. There's a lot of jobs on the line. So there's a lot at stake. And I think when you get to competition, it's this is me speaking. I like sports where you're against a clock. There's no judgment there. There's no, well, I think you could have did a better twist or you could have did this better or like your listen, 10 seconds is 10 seconds, a minute and 20 is a minute and 20. If you did a 122, that's on you. You can have nobody to blame but yourself. The coaches can do the best they can and prepare you and for swimming, like, you taper before a big meet, whatever, but you're against the clock. Skiing, all that stuff's against the clock. So it's when you get into the other, like, I don't know, like we were watching the other day with my daughters, like figure skating. That's all judgment.
Yeah.
So I've seen performances where I'm like, damn, that person crushed it. And they got like fourth. And the person that won sucked, in my opinion. Now, granted, I don't know much about fucking figure skating, but I'm just saying I can tell when something's really awesome and on point, and the other one's like, oh, it's okay. So they're quick to, that's an easy example of where people could be quick to judge. But in general, the quicking to judge with sports is there's a lot at stake.
Yeah.
And people don't want to stick their head out when we're talking about millions and hundreds of millions of dollars because the squeaky wheel will just get lost. You're done. You're going to get let go. So that's my opinion on that.
Yeah, and I think too, especially in my world, we're so quick to blame a person, and I'll pull back the curtain because I mean, kayfabe's kind of dead anyway. If someone blows a spot, or forgets a spot, when I was, years ago, I was known as like a ring general, which mean I kind of like took took control. I had
Mhm.
everything under control. It's harder now because things are done differently. Everything is kind of like sequenced, and which is things change. You have to adapt, or you're not going to be around, and
Mhm.
that's been a hard thing for me because I love to be able to get in there and improv. So it's understanding like, hey, I'm old school 100%, and there's a new way of doing things. So I can't blame my opponent if something goes wrong because it's a dance, right? If you're dancing with a girl and she trips, well, whose fault is that? Maybe it's
Hers.
your fault for
I'm kidding.
her. Exactly. Yeah. Just dropping bombs, Greg.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, but it's my fault. If she trips and falls, well, maybe it's my
Hmm.
fault for being clumsy, not having good footwork. So again, in competition, we look at, okay, it could be the referee, it could be being judged, it could be an athletic performance. What I
Hmm.
do is, at the end of the night, I want people to remember me and remember my performance and remember what I do. I don't want to just be like everyone else out there. I wrestle differently than other people. I look differently than other people. And in this at 2023, it's not 1999 anymore. So I think being able to carry that into this makes it. So I think the grand scheme of thing is that we have to really take stock of ourselves in competition. And I think, like, and I love him. And Michael Jordan is like, I play The Last Dance all the time. That guy is just, he's talking about competition. I mean, this guy would make up stories to keep himself engaged.
Hmm.
And that was the ultimate competitor. And again, but looking at it, like, Michael Jordan had his issues and his demons that drove him to be. So there's
Hmm.
two sides to every story, Greg. And I love that.
Absolutely.
You know, um, Here's one for you that you can really talk at length in with your family life. Two
Hmm.
sides to every story when it comes to family life. You hear, I mean, having a sibling or parents or a spouse. How hard is it, or are you're probably really good at this, but how hard is it to hear both sides of the story without being like, I'm always right, or I did, without being defensive? That makes sense.
With who am I listening to though? What? Give me a.
Well, situational. Let's just say, like, with your spouse,
Mm,
right? Do you when you handle conflict, do you often just sit back and reflect, okay, like, could I have done something better? Or is it like, did I communicate something clearly? Or is it like, no, she might have, you know, done something without being conscious of it? Like, how do you handle, like, understanding, hey, like, listen, there's, like, I can't jump down her throat. Let me just take a step back and see, like, what did I do to contribute
not
to this?
well. Not well. Still working on it. I mean, listen. I'll be honest. It's hard. You and I are wired a certain way. Everyone's wired different, but you can't expect somebody to handle something the way you would, right or wrong. They're
Yeah.
just different. And I like being like 5 steps ahead of somebody. You can't expect everybody to be like that because not everybody's like that. And sometimes it's hard and it can cause problems, but it's a fact of life, and a lot of relationships struggle with it. So I think it's hard when you want somebody to look at something your way, but that's impossible because they're not you. And also vice versa. They want you to do a certain thing or think a certain way, and it's like, well, I don't, I don't think that. I don't think that's true.
Right.
It's hard. That's why everything's a compromise, and why communication is really the key. You got to keep trying to talk about it, and then sometimes it's just okay to disagree. I'll agree to disagree. We're on
Right.
opposite sides on this. That's fine. You don't have to, you know, not talk to the other person forever because of it. I just think, listen, I have really close friends that they think completely opposite of me on a lot of different things, like politics and all this stuff. That we're still tight because that's not a reason to, in my opinion, and obviously theirs too, a reason not to be cool. You've been cool with somebody for so long, like you can have a difference of opinion. It's not that big of a deal. It's not like life or death. So,
So in certain situations, it's okay to take, like, a timeout and just kind of like,
oh, definitely take timeouts.
yeah,
Definitely take timeouts and quick breather or cool off or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, and then when you're doing that, number one, try to decompress yourself, but then think about it like, all right, what is the actual issue here? Is it just that we're not seeing eye to eye? Is it, am I being an asshole? Are they being an asshole? Are they, you got to try to like break it
right.
down and really get to the root. And sometimes when you do that, you can't answer it because it's bullshit and it doesn't mean anything. And you can just pick up and move on because it's not worth it. It's actually, you guys don't even know why you're arguing. And that's a good thing because there's nothing there. So it's all good sometimes.
I like that. I like
Yeah.
that response. You know, but let's kind of, we covered relationships, dating,
Mm.
competition, family, work. We covered like 5 areas where there are two sides to every story, and mostly everything in life with the news. We know what's going on
Yeah.
around the world. Some people will only see one side.
Hmm.
Give us a synopsis. Give us a final resolve on how we can safeguard ourselves from being so quick to
Hmm.
side with one story
Yeah.
without hearing the entire story.
It's it's before you make a decision, look at where you're getting your information from. Is it just one source? Then I don't think you should just take that and run. Even if it's aligned with you, you shouldn't do that. Even if you agree with it, you shouldn't do that. You should get it from multiple sources and then make an educated decision. People that watch CNN think one way. People that watch Fox think another way. It's designed that way. They're both only showing you what they want you to see. Nothing else. They're not giving you the entire picture. No news network gives you the entire picture. You got to try to get from multiple different sources and then dig deeper if it means that much to you, and then figure out what's actually going on. You hear me say this, so I don't watch the news at all anymore.
Yeah.
It's all what they want to just feed you. I don't want to be fed something. I want to do my own research. Right or
Yeah.
wrong, I'll do it myself. So
Yeah.
I think to answer your question shortly, just know your source. And if it's only one, I think that's not the right way to go. You should have multiple sources. And if you're too lazy to do that, then don't complain.
Mm.
That's it.
Yeah. And I think we have to keep in mind that everybody is flawed. Everybody makes mistakes.
Speak for
Everybody
yourself,
is
Mike.
is well, yeah,
I'm just kidding. I'm
exactly.
just
I
kidding.
mean, I agree. But I
Hmm.
think we can't like be so quick to hear how a guy will say that he got cheated on or he
Yeah.
got this without knowing the facts. And
Yep.
when a girl says that she might have been a victim of something circumstantial,
Hmm.
again, it's kind of like you want to side with that person because you want to believe
Yeah.
in the goodness, but we have to also be careful that we kind of see all sides of the spectrum. And I think even at work too, looking at, am I up to speed? Do my values kind of coincide with what my employer is asking me to do? Because that could be a moral compass thing. So, there have been situations
Hmm.
where, you can find yourself in. So again, that's one thing. I think with competition, we have to
Yep.
take accountability for our performance,
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, like we're a part of the problem, not the solution. I think when it comes to relationships, obviously, my relationship is a little bit different than your relationship. My relationships last 10 minutes, yours may last 10 years. But, I think the
I don't know
important
about
thing is,
that, but
I
wrong
think
guy.
I think the thing is, no, it was in the past. But I think the thing is, like you said, communication's key, and you got to be able to have honest dialogue with your partner, and you have to be able to understand but again, it's got to be reciprocated. And if it's not
it's
reciprocated, then
Yeah. It's got to be a two-way street.
that'd
It's
be a
got to be
two-way
an
street.
equal two-way street. And we've all been burned, both guys and girls.
Hmm.
I think you said this last episode or 2 episodes ago. Just you can't bring that forward. As hard as it may be,
Yeah,
when the person's sitting across from you, getting to know them, like don't put that last person's hat on them.
that's right.
But it's hard. We've all done it. Like I've sat across people and I'm not even listening. They're talking and I just see this, and I'm already like, oh yeah, they're and I'm just going down the laundry list, and it's just like,
Right.
so it's hard. I'm sure they were doing it to me too. I just didn't care.
Yeah. And I think
So
a great way to sum this up, you made a two sides of the story requires two-way street,
it does. It does, and an equal two-way street.
an equal two-way street. And I think that's
It's
something that
just
we should take away.
I don't know. I just think the whole dating thing is. Listen, I haven't dated in a long time, obviously, but I I had a hard time when I was dating. because I don't trust. And then, like we said before, we've been a part of a lot of different things where it skews your judgment, and then you see people um, put on a certain facade or act on their Instagram, and then, oh, look, they read books to kids in libraries. Meanwhile, they're friggin' selling their friggin' used underwear the next minute for $200 and going on yachts in Fort Lauderdale with old fat guys. But we all know what that is. Just saying, just keep it real, please. Guys like us, I tell you, we see it coming a mile away. I respect somebody that just tells me that they do that. I always have. Always have. Always have.
Yeah, and that is the mic drop of the evening. Greggy T. That was that's the great way to finish it. And I
Just keep
think
it real.
keep it real. And I think, it's funny. I met a girl at the floor. So I saw my dentist today. And my dentist is awesome. She's just dynamite. She's just so cool. And I met her at a bar when I was still running around when I first moved here, and I was pretty hammered. And I told her I needed a dentist because I just moved here, and she thought I was full of it. She gave me her card. I called her, and she's like, "You really called?" I'm like, "I wasn't lying." And she's like, we're friends. She's awesome. So I wanted to get her something nice for the holidays because I go there often because I want to keep my teeth in check. And she's just so
The
sweet
exact
and so
opposite of
nice.
me. So you're good with your teeth, Mike. You're good with your teeth.
Well, not according to this report,
I
but
just want dentures. I just take them. I haven't found one
uh,
dentist yet that'll rip my teeth out. Just take them all
dude,
out. I don't want them. Nothing but
dude,
headaches, man.
it's crazy. And I met a girl who was Christian behind the counter, and she wore a cross, and we started talking. It was really cool. And I think when people have a stigma of Christians as like this walk on water. Listen, everybody, I
Yeah.
struggle. I struggle with things. We all do, right? It's not a victim here, but it's like real stuff. I don't always
Mhm.
make the right choices. But it's understanding like, hey, if I wake up every morning, it's a fresh start. And I think understanding that I've been forgiven, and I'm not saying I'm going to go out and do something stupid, but like things that we, desires of the flesh and things that we do in the fleshly sense, you know, unfortunately, it doesn't coincide with a certain lifestyle. But we do fall down, but
The South Florida lifestyle, Mike. What
got
are
to
you
get
talking
back up.
about?
Well, it's a combination of the South Florida, Miami, DC lifestyle and
Yes.
Las Vegas lifestyle. So, but Greggy T, I'm going to see you soon. That'll be fun. You'll get to see me in action December
Yeah,
15th in
man.
Pompano
Looking
Beach.
forward
It'll be
to it.
really cool. I'm going to see Curtis and Kara Thursday, the 14th, um,
Yeah, tell them I said
up
hello.
up in Orlando for their holiday fundraiser. Where
Should
I'll
I
be.
start a fight in the stand? Should I like throw a chair in the ring or something and get everybody going?
Sure, why not?
Okay, okay.
Blame it on the test. Blame it on the test.
Yeah, EmpowerMAN.
And then next week, Greggy T, we're gonna celebrate Christmas because
Yes.
we'll be dropping our episode on Christmas Eve, which will be awesome. And then
Yes.
after that, it'll be New Year's. It'll be New Year's Eve, and I'll actually be up in New York. So
Yeah,
we'll
man.
have to we'll have to do our New Year's Eve episode, and then we're coming out hot in 2024, everybody. So gear up. It's gonna be a big year. And from with that, I'm gonna sign off from the free state of Florida. Greg
Absolutely.
A.
Yes,
Safe
sir.
travels tomorrow, man.
Thanks, man. I will see you on Friday, sir. All right, everybody. Have a good one.
God
Keep it
bless.
real.